Hey, as the promo says at the beginning, welcome to Edified. It's good to be with you. This is our last episode of 2017. What an amazing year it's been, and we're just thrilled to be with you and to close out 2017 and look to next year. We know that God has some exciting things in store for us, and so we're just grateful to be here together and to share this time with you. We want to get right into it. We have a lot to talk about today. So, Justin, why don't you just get us rolling?
Yeah, as our title says, finish and start. We want to really strive to finish this current year strong. But then look, as George said, it's the last podcast of the year. We are nearing the end. In the next few days, we'll be starting a new year. So we want to talk about starting fresh, starting a new year, starting strong, just as we finish strong. In Proverbs chapter 29 and verse 25, says, "The fear of man lays a snare, but whoever trusts in the Lord is safe." And I hope that our trust in God has grown through this year. I hope for you listeners, anybody that's tuning in, Facebook Live or on iTunes later, that we have helped your trust in God grow through the year, through what we have said, through what God has put on our hearts to really broadcast to you. And I hope that all of us can grow in our trust to God, because in that trust we are safe.
You know, finishing the year strong is very important. It's important in a lot of ways. Again, when we talk about Christianity, we talk about it's not how you start, it's how you finish. And that makes sense, because the last thing we want to do is to finish the race, finish the course, as the Apostle Paul talked about when he wrote to Timothy. But, you know, I listen to a lot of podcasts myself, and one that I've listened to in the past has to do, and I can't tell you the guy's name, but he's a guy that has overcome a lot of addictions in his life. He's overcome alcohol, he's overcome food, he's overcome being lazy, even coffee. He was addicted to coffee. He's overcome a lot of things. And one thing that he's gotten into now, again, he has an addictive personality, so he's into running marathons. And when I say running marathons, it's not just, he's ran a lot of full marathons, the Boston Marathon, those kinds of marathons, but he's running these really hard, you have to be invited type marathons. And there are some that are extremely dangerous that he's running, but the reason he's doing them is to prove to himself that he can. He used to be a very overweight guy and all, but his goal is to not come in first on those hard marathons. His goal is to finish. And, you know, I think about that. You know, the good news is the Christian race is not as hard as people make it out to be.
Right.
But our goal isn't to come in first. Our goal has to be, let's just finish.
Yeah.
Let's finish what God wants us to finish.
You know, and like you said, it's not a sprint, right? Thankfully, because I would not be very good at it. I would barely be good at a marathon. But the idea is true that we're in this for the long haul. You know, when we look at all of the things in our lives that we pursue that take an amount of effort, whether it's our education, our professional goals, the raising of our children, our grandchildren, any of those things. You know, there's an investment that it takes of time and energy and money and everything else. And a lot of times we can get frustrated because we don't see instant results, right? But the things that are worth the most are the things that really and truly take the longest to attain, our eternal life being first and foremost. And one of the things that we just, you know, I want to impress on us is the idea of setting a course. I taught a class years ago, several times, on charting our spiritual course. We make a plan for everything else we do in our lives, and sometimes we don't make a plan for our lives spiritually. So when we think about finishing, I think the best way that we can finish is make sure that our path to God has been laid out in detail so that we can get there.
You know, one thing I want to strive to do myself in this upcoming year, and something I try not to do, is to compare myself to other people. In 1 Samuel chapter 17, we know where David goes to fight Goliath. He comes from shepherding his flock to bring food to his brothers, right? And he comes up to Israel, and they're all standing there on top of the mountain looking down at Goliath, and nobody is really wanting to go and fight Goliath. Well, David decides you know what, I'll go and fight. God's been with me as I've been shepherding my flock. Now, there's been a bear attack us and a lion attack, and I've been able to fight those off with God. So he puts on Saul's armor, and as he finishes putting that on, he says that I'm not used to this. I'm not prepared. I've not battle tested this, so to speak. I've not practiced with this armor on, so I'm going to take it off, and I'm going to take what's comfortable to me. I'm going to take Saul's armor off. I'm going to take somebody else's armor off. I'm going to go get those stones, and I'm going to take my slingshot. And I'm going to go down there, and I'm going to fight the giant. So the idea of that we need to take Saul's armor off. We don't, as a church fam, we don't need to compare ourselves to other churches. As a youth group, I try to tell our kids all the time, we don't need to compare our youth ministry to other youth ministries, because I think that was something maybe we did a little early on, is, oh, look at the other congregations around. Their youth groups are 30 and 40 kids. We need to be that. Sometimes when we compare ourselves to other people, we do a couple of things. One, we look at each other, and if I compare myself to you, I may say, well, I'm a lot better than Terry because I can run a marathon, right? Or I can run a half marathon. Terry can't. And so I kind of puff myself up. I become cocky. Or I look at you and say, you know what, I can't lift the strong weights that Terry lifts. Are y'all trying to interpret all this Ukrainian and Russian on here? I look at Terry and I compare myself to him, saying, you know, I can't bench the same weight that Terry benches, so I give up. So I'm doing one or two things. I'm puffing myself up, or then I'm comparing myself to you and thinking, well, I'm not as good, so I may quit and give up. Mm-hmm. One thing we all need to do is we need to shed Saul's armor. Mm-hmm. We need to go into battle, this Christian battle, with the tools and we talked about talents a few weeks ago, that the abilities that God has given us. We are created for His workmanship. Right. We're created for a purpose. We need to excel in the things that we have talents in, abilities in.
Yeah, that's a great point, Justin. Comparing ourselves to others is really, it can be good, but mainly it can be bad. The reason I say it can be good is sometimes, there might be things spiritually about you that I want to obtain. Sure. But you're exactly right. When we just look at others and say, hey, I want to be like this, or, I'm trying to measure up to this person or that person, it can certainly be devastating. I do want to take time and say hello to our Ukrainian friends, also to you, B. Parker. But thank you all for tuning in. Vlad, we miss you too. By the way, Vlad, who we also call Vova, has been on the podcast before from Ukraine. Yeah. But one of our brothers talked about Israel, and that is a great point. Israel did start well. They actually started because God gave it to them. That when they were in Egypt, they didn't realize who they were, or what they had. They were in bondage. And so God, by His grace, He gave them freedom. He allowed them out. And things looked okay. And He said, hey, I'm going to give you the promised land. I'm going to give you all this Canaan, this land that's flowing with milk and honey. It's fertile and everything else. And you remember they sent those spies out, and 12 of them went out, and 10 of them came back and said, hey, it's just like God said. It's just as great as God said. And but we can't do it. Why can't we do it? Well, they got giants there. Mm-hmm. They've got giants in the land, and we can't take them. And I'm afraid sometimes that we allow giants, what we call giants, things that are big in our lives, things that are huge obstacles, they come up in our way, they come up in our path, and all of a sudden we say, hey, God's promised us this, He's given us this, we just can't do it, so I'm just going to give up. But if David doesn't shed that armor, he may not slay that giant. Mm-hmm. If Joshua and Caleb do not say, hey, we can do this, maybe he doesn't become the leader of Israel later on. Whatever we stand with God, God plus anything, God is the majority. Yeah. We do not have to worry. And some of you that may be thinking 2017's been a fail, you've given in to big things and giant things in your life, it doesn't have to be a failure. There's still time. There's still time to surrender before we do start the new year. There's time to get things right. There's time to overcome. We need to be on the Joshua and Caleb committee, not on the grasshopper committee. They say we're like grasshoppers compared to these giants. Think about what our obstacles are compared to our God.
Yeah, I think it's also important that we, if we want to close out this year in the right way, we need to identify, are there things left unsaid? Are there situations that need to be dealt with? Are there conflicts that need to be resolved, right? Wouldn't it be great to wake up January 1st, 2018 with a clean slate, right? You got everybody that you know and love, that you needed to talk to, that you've spoken to. Any issues maybe with family or friends that need to be resolved, that's been taken care of. And most importantly, I wake up on January 1st, 2018, realizing that I'm in the right relationship with God. That is the perfect way to end a year, to finish up strong. As we look to the next year, so we're talking about finishing, but we're also talking about starting. What I love about a new year, down on Pleasant Valley Road. Then we moved, and after that, it was we were at Dad was in preaching school, and then we were there for a couple of years. And then after that, we moved for 2 years to another place, a year to another place. I finished middle school at a fifth place, and did all my high school in the last place.
Wow.
But the cool part about that, as bad as that seems, the cool part about that is when I went to the new place, I got to start fresh. Right? First impressions. I got to make whatever first impression I wanted to make. My dad always told me that. You want to go in big and strong? Try to go in big and strong. I was always scrawny, so that was never really an opportunity for me. But I could go in being someone who was outspoken. I could be someone who was quiet. And so I say all that to say this. As we start 2018, what do you want to be? Most importantly, what do you want to be for your family? What do you want to be for God? Are you want to step up and to do things you've never done before? Try new things. Teach a class maybe you've never done that before, right? Be someone who is a visitor of those who sick. Maybe you've never done that before. The possibilities are endless for us as we pursue 2018. I think for the three of us, we have to look within ourselves and say, what can we do more in 2018 with the Edified Podcast?
2018 is 3 days away.
Yeah.
And even though we spend so much time, maybe not everybody, but maybe making New Year's resolutions. A new year is a new opportunity.
Yep.
Well, every new day technically also is a new opportunity. James cautions us into planning too much ahead while not focusing on our task today. Ecclesiastes 9 and 10 says, whatever you do, do well. For when you go to the grave, there will be no work or planning or knowledge or wisdom. So we need to make sure, even though I agree, we're looking to 2018, there's new opportunities that will be presented to us. We need to make sure that every single day we are living for God. We are using our time wisely, because even though it's only 3 days, 4 days away, we're not guaranteed 2018. So we need to make sure we are finishing every minute we have, making sure that we're in the right relationship with God, as George pointed out a minute ago, because, hey, it may not get there for us.
That's right. By the way, one of the names on here I did not recognize because it's in Russian, but when I looked at the picture, it's Vitaly. Hello, yep. Vitaly. Good to see you, brother. We certainly want to make sure that we do as Justin and George have said, but I also want us to think about, living our life in the moment. Mm-hmm. Sometimes we reflect too much on the past, and it can really be depressing. I talked with a guy. I was just at a retirement home. Some of our ladies fixed some lunch for them today, and it was a really great blessing. They asked me to come and have prayer with them and everything, and so I did. And as I was leaving out the door, a man stopped me. He's confined to a wheelchair now, and he said, "I'm very lonely." He said, "If you will remember me in prayer." He this time of the year, he's reflecting on his past. He said, all my friends are gone. My friends that I ran with in life. And he said, my wife died on December the 23rd a few years ago. And he was just really having a hard time, and my heart really went out to him. But then he went to telling me, he said, "But I remember the day I became a Christian." And he said it was like May 23rd, 1986 or something. He had it down to the day and all. And he said, I used to drink all this vodka every day. And he said, he said, when I gave that up, when I became a Christian, I gave that up, and I gave up cigarettes, and it was really special. Even though he was down and sad about the past, he reflected on the moment when he gave his life to God. And I think that's how we need to be. Paul remembered his past. He remembered the things in his life, but he talked about pressing on.
Yeah.
Some out there 2017 may have been the worst year of your lives. But as George said, there's a new coming. But we also can't say, okay, well, in 2018, in June or July, I'm gonna get my life right, and I'm gonna be ready. We might not have June and July of 2018,
Right.
and so we need to live in the moment. We need to understand that what we have is what we have today, right now. And listen, there may be some of you thinking, hey, I need to surrender my life. I need to get right with the Lord. Call us today.
Yeah.
Get in touch with us today. Don't wait till tomorrow or try to wait for 3 or 4 months from now. Come on now, because living our lives right now for God in this moment is all that we can have, and we're all that we're guaranteed.
Yeah, and I think my personal theme for this year has a lot of it is centered around being a grandfather. We added another grandchild, this year earlier in January, and so it's just really engulfed mine and Sam's life, and it's just it's a great blessing for us. And what it has brought to my attention is the reality and the necessity of cherishing the little moments. Because, matter of fact, Justin, I was talking to Ashley last night about, your son and my grandson are about to be a year old. Mm-hmm. And that kind of made her sad a little bit to think about how quickly he's gone out of being a newborn to being a year old. And so it does bring to mind how valuable every moment that we spend with people is, whether it's time like this. This has been, so many episodes, and I can almost remember every one because they've been special, and they've had their own, either sad or hilarious moments, a lot of the behind the scenes stuff for us, it's just been great. But I think about a lot of the moments of this year, what they've meant to me and to my family. And I remember I was shopping for Sam for Christmas last week, and I was standing in line just waiting to pay for her stuff, and I felt myself becoming emotional, just really thinking about moments that I've had with my family this year, and so to Justin's point, and to Terry's too, to being in the here and now, to cherishing what we have and recognizing it as a blessing, is so important for us. And past that, it's just something that's really been working on me lately. Is thinking about next year, is trying to focus on encouraging people to bring one person to Christ. I know that's like a quick segue for me, but I just think about how impactful that would be to the kingdom. Mm-hmm. If just at our congregation, if every member brought one person to Christ. Honestly, if we think about it, the amount of people we're surrounded with, that's not out of the realm of possibilities. And it's not that difficult to do. It's a matter of stepping out in our faith, and maybe that's something that we say as we start 2018. That's my primary goal outside of, growing in my faith, is sharing the message of Christ with one person.
I'd like to piggyback off of that, because we were talking earlier in my office, and a lot of times I think that people look at us as ministers, a youth minister, a preacher, and an elder. That's your job. That's your job to go out and to spread the gospel and to bring people to Christ. No, that's all of our jobs. We're all ministers. Now, Terry and I are paid ministers, but we are all ministers. We can all minister to people. We can meet the needs of people. We can share Christ with people. And that was part of what we really tried to push the last 3 weeks, of sharing the good news, the gift that God has given us, right? To go and share that gift with other people. We need to, as ministers, we need to, as Christians, as leaders, empower people more. We need to not do jobs that other people can do. Our elders all the time in elders meetings say, hey, you know what? We don't want to step over our deacons. Mm-hmm. We want to let our deacons do the deacon, right? Let them do the work that they have signed up, that they have volunteered, they have been selected to do, because if we overstep them, they're never going to grow.
Right.
And I think about that. You talk about having kids. Grayson's 1 year, almost one, in a week. He'll be one. he is a bulldozer. Right? Riley slept in the bed with us last night. Grayson always gets up in the middle of the night about 2 o'clock. He sits up in bed and he just looks at me in his crib. And I'll go get him. I'll try to lay him down. Sometimes he's kind of gotten into this pattern, like, you're going to pick me up. You're going to take me in the bed and I'll fall back asleep with you. Well, last night he was laying beside me. He wakes up. He crawls over Riley to Ashley. And 15 minutes later, crawling back. Crazy kid. But I think about my kids. And if I always, Riley's 3 now, if I'm always cleaning up after her, or if I'm always putting things together for her, always throwing her trash away, or always feeding her,
right.
She's never growing.
Right.
But if I empower her, if I allow her to drink tea out of the large glass with 2 hands by herself, she's learning in that process. We need to be people that empower others, that give them tasks, that allow them to fail and allow them to grow through those failures and through their successes.
Do you guys make New Year's resolutions?
No.
Back and forth. I never tell anybody.
Yeah, I don't know that I've ever written one down. There's certainly been things that's like, I'm going to do this better this year or whatever. But, I use this a lot. I think about people that one of their New Year's resolutions, even myself, I'm trying to lose a few pounds, but one of most people's New Year's resolutions, I'm going to get in better shape.
Yeah.
I'm going to get in better shape. And man, in January, we've got a member here that his family owns several of the gyms in town, and I could imagine this is a good time of year for them.
Yeah.
They've just opened some gyms across the bay, and I think about the gym come January. There are going to be a lot of people in there.
Mm-hmm.
There are going to be a lot of people going, man, this is my year. I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it.
There was not many this morning.
This morning there were not very many people in the gym. But by about February or March, those people, some of them are going to be gone.
Yeah.
They're going to be in a contract. They're going to be giving their money every week, but they're not going to be participating. There are a lot of reasons why. But one thing I want us to understand today is this. There are going to be a lot of things that distract us, as we resolve to be better, to do more for God. There are going to be a lot of things that distract us, get in the way. The devil's good at what he does. Just like the gym memberships and those diets. I mean, they're still going to make Oreos. They're still going to make Snickers bars. And those things are really good.
Yeah.
And they're going to get in the way. The devil's going to throw things in our way. But we've got to be able to overcome those. That's why I love Revelation so much. Jesus addresses so much of that to the overcomers. They were going through so many persecutions. Rome was, the emperors were so empowered and they had so much control that they hated Christianity. And so they were trying to kill it out. They were trying to die, and they were doing anything necessary. And so Jesus gets a message in their hands and says to the 7 churches of Asia, hey, be overcomers. And that's kind of my final message today is this. Whether you're finishing, I'm supposed to finish the show, sorry. But I'll just say this and then I'll come back to me. Whether you're finishing 2017, thinking about that, or starting 2018, there's going to be a lot that life throws at you. But the main thing is you can be an overcomer. You don't have to be crippled by the world. We can all stand up. We can all run. We may not be fast, but as long as we're going forward, we're making progress. And that's really what God wants out of all of us.
Yeah, and like I said, I don't normally say out loud what my resolutions are. That also keeps people from realizing that, or not knowing if I didn't make them or not, I guess. But maybe I should do better with that. But I think there's a better way to do it than setting resolutions. And I think that's something that our congregation here has set as our theme for next year. And that's simply the word more. We realize where we're at and what we need to do for God. And no matter where we are, we all realize we can do more and should do more. Samantha and I are talking even this morning about our purposing our giving for next year. And I said, what are your thoughts about that? And the only thing she said was, we can do more. We need to do more. And what a great lesson from a great woman. And I'm wanting that to be infused into all of us in every area of our lives as we pursue God, as we pursue righteousness, as we try to serve Him with everything that we are. We can start this year not promising to lose 20 pounds or to get bigger muscles or to do this, that, or the other. But if we just commit to God that we're going to do more, then, man, I think, as we've learned in the past, God rewards our work. We'll be blessed. It'll be another phenomenal year for us if we commit to do more. So I'll just say, for us, for our part here, for my part individually, I want to do more in every area of my life. And so now I've put it out to social media, so I guess I'm just going to have to do more.
You have a large support group now.
Yeah, hopefully.
I see Ed May has said good afternoon. That's my wife's uncle. Lives up in Florence.
Uncle Ed.
He's celebrating his 44th wedding anniversary with his wife
Awesome.
today. So happy anniversary there, Uncle Ed. In closing here, Nehemiah chapter 2. Love Nehemiah, maybe one of my favorite biblical characters, and we did that for VBS a few years ago. In Nehemiah chapter 2, the people had a mind to work. They were faced with a great challenge. Nehemiah has inspected the walls of Jerusalem. The gates had all been torn down and burned with fire, and those people rallied together. They had a mind to work. Then chapter 3 is laced with so many families and sons of so-and-so that worked, and they used their talents specifically, and then other people filled in just where work was needed to be done. And together in 52 days, less than 2 months, less than our favorite TV series, they built the walls. They finished the gate. It's just an incredible story of people rallying together, and they didn't do it without any opposition, right? They did it while they were hammering with one hand and having a sword, having to fight in another hand. Yeah. And I think that's so awesome. It's such a great picture of God's forever family. As our church family, we are people with a bunch of different talents and a bunch of different abilities, and we are supposed to use those abilities to the best of our ability. Use our talents to the best of our ability, but also just to fill in where needed. And I hope we can all do more this upcoming year. I'm excited about it.
Yeah,
me too. We want the Edified podcast to do more. We are thankful for the views we get each and every week, but we want to take it to the next level, not for us, but for God and for edification of our brothers and sisters and future brothers and sisters in Christ. So maybe you can help out with that. Maybe you can help share this. Maybe you can help, put it on your social media and get the word out for us, because it's not about George and Justin and me. In fact, we started this thing out by not showing our face, but the reason we went Facebook Live is because people said, well, get on Facebook Live and more people will see it and all. And so, there are all kinds of things we can do, but the main thing is we want God's name to be at the forefront of this. And as I get ready to close essentially again, remember Paul didn't start real well. He started out as a man that was persecuting the church.
Yeah.
But when he wrote to Timothy, he said he's fought the good fight, he's finished the race, and he's kept the faith. And now is laid up for him a crown of righteousness. But here's the beauty of it. It wasn't just for him only. It's for all of us that are willing to finish the race. Thank you for your viewership. Thank you for your kind words and your encouragement and your prayers. We want God to be glorified. We're satisfied if you are edified. Thank you.